To coverage, more on the storm coverage in just a moment. I'm Todd McDermott. We have our exclusive WPBF 25 political analyst with me to talk about the races and the night to come. Again, polls still open. Adam Hasner, former House Majority Leader, and former U.S. Congressman Ron Klein. Ron, I almost reelected you, and you're welcome for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk first, and Adam, I'll start with you. What are we hearing on all-important turnout on this election day?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting now is we have the technology to be able to track who has voted, both by mail, early in person, and on election day. It's in real time. So while there's still about an hour to go before polls close here on Eastern time zone and 2 hours before Central, I would tell you that turnout is far below what it was in 2018, although Republican turnout is much higher. And now, as we've talked about, there are more registered Republicans in the state of Florida than Democrats. So that all favors Republican victories statewide and across the state.
And I also saw some numbers, Ron, that the registrations for political parties between primary month, if you will, and this general election also favored Republicans. What are the factors involved in all this at this point?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think Republicans have done a better job of registering people and mechanically, and I think Democrats have sort of fallen behind in that effort. The Democrats did very well for many, many years in literally getting people registered in the files and all that. I also think there's probably a lot of people have come down, new voters from different places. Some of them are Republicans, probably more than maybe Democrats, and that maybe has some impact. The state is still a purple state, and although the government looks very red, it's because of gerrymandering and things like that, by and large, in the legislature and the congressional districts as well.
Well, we do have a huge electorate and a huge state population to deal with. Let's zone in on the key races. Adam, I'll start with you, and let's talk first about the governor's race, if we could. There is no poll that shows that Ron DeSantis, the incumbent, is going to get beaten by the former governor, Charlie Crist. But what do we see? And again, the polls are still open. I want to emphasize that.
Yeah, and based on the data that I was talking about, I think you can expect to see what some would call a historical victory in terms of the size, the margin of victory for Governor DeSantis. It's not just because there are more registered Republicans, it's also because those non-party affiliates, the unaffiliated voters, are breaking more to Republicans, and because Governor DeSantis is going to do much better with the African American community and the Hispanic community. We've been doing this for many years now, and we've been talking about very close elections. I think tonight we're going to be talking about the size, the margin of victory for Governor DeSantis over Charlie Crist.
Ron, as far as the governor's race goes, besides the fact that he has raised an enormous amount of money, it's beyond that. What are some of the factors and maybe issues that are influencing this race as we look at the polls ready to close here in an hour or so?
Yeah, a couple points I'd like to make. Number one, I don't necessarily think that the Democratic base is running over to Ron DeSantis at all. So the traditional Democratic base really doesn't like him for a lot of his positions. Everything from privacy rights, abortion issues, his autocratic way of doing things. People, on the Democrat side don't care for that. Maybe some Republicans think that's great, but I don't think the Democrats are running toward Ron DeSantis. I think the rest of this is, you're going to have a big turnout, and we'll just have to see how this plays out. I think Ron DeSantis had $150 million. He's running as a presidential candidate, by and large, to displace Trump. So, I think he's probably getting a lot of attention that way, too.
Let's talk briefly. We have a minute left to talk about an ex-presidential candidate who's running for his third term in the U.S. Senate. It's Marco Rubio against a well-liked U.S. Congresswoman in Val Demings. But Adam, again, all the polls show that Marco Rubio is looking at a third term, perhaps, here?
I'm pretty confident in that, but this race is a little bit different than the governor's race, primarily because something Ron talked about. Val Demings outspent Marco Rubio significantly in this campaign. And so while I continue to think that Rubio is going to have a sizable victory, I don't think it will be as large as the margin that you're going to see in the DeSantis-Crist race.
Well, let me ask you this then, Ron. Because Val Demings was able to raise so much money in this race, in a tough race against an incumbent, is this at least a glimmer of hope for Democrats going forward?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Listen, Marco Rubio is going to get the benefit of coattails from the governor, DeSantis. That's what's going to probably be his margin, and it's not going to be the same margin that, as Adam is saying, I agree, it's not going to be the same number that he wins by. But I think Val Demings ran a good campaign, and it's just up against tough headwinds right now.
I want to be clear again, we're not calling races. The polls are still open. And I'm also not releasing our exclusive political analysts. Adam Hasner, Ron Klein will be here with us throughout the evening on this election day. We're also continuing